Hello there, people of the internet, and welcome to another episode of Political Headache. My name is Agiolo, and I'm in studio again with Omondi Ochuka. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
We want to talk about the story of Tamara Kafura. That's how... Kafura.
Blessing.
Tell me about that story. What happened?
Sometimes when despicable things happen around you, where you are, and you're tasked with the responsibility of reporting it, you do not know whether to grieve or break down or completely numb.
Yeah.
What happened to the 7-year-old Tamara Blessing is indescribable.
Yeah.
To imagine that it can happen amidst us. And as a father to a teenage daughter, as a human being, I cannot put that violence inside my body and not vomit. It makes me cringe. It makes me feel animalistic. It makes me feel weep, really, for our children, for our country. And when I was coming to the studio this morning, I was thinking in terms of how political rape is, how political violence and indignation and plunder and abuse is in this country.
Yeah.
So while, yes, on the internet, online, and I think physically right now in Nyeri, where this violence happened, this crime happened, this rape happened, we are naming the 7-year-old girl. But we need to do more beyond the naming.
Yeah.
Beyond remembering her, beyond humanizing her.
Yeah.
I do not know exactly what happened, but I have gone through bodies of literature, of course, online in terms of people reporting what happened. Apparently, there is a young man, not really young, I think probably in his 30s, who is a beba guy. Beba guy are people who help people, porter, like they carry stuff, luggage from one place to another in Nyeri. So he might have abducted Tamara and raped her. I imagine Tamara might have succumbed to her injuries out of pain or the sort, and buried her like a dog or a cat. Sometimes, I think in this day and age, cats even are buried in funerals.
Yeah.
There's a whole funeral service for cats and dogs.
Yeah.
He buried somebody's daughter after defiling her.
Yeah.
In a shallow grave. And when I look into the larger scale of our country, I don't think there's any difference between what politicians are doing to us and what that man did to
that daughter. I want to come back to understand what you mean when you say rape is political. But for those who have not heard or seen the story, the young girl was missing for a while, and her family was looking for her. And, people get word out, and because it's in Nyeri, he must have known that the family was looking for this young girl, only for the body of this young girl to be found dead. And I can only imagine if you're the mother of Tamara and you're looking for your girl and you're just hoping, okay, she lost her way, she's somewhere, she's in Embu, maybe she found herself in Embu or whatever,
to a relative
or something like that, only for the worst news you can receive about your child to be what you receive, and not because some accident happened, she wasn't knocked by a car, she wasn't not because of any reason that could be accidental, but because somebody intentionally took her, maybe walking from school or just walking along the road, took her to his house and committed such a vile act and then decided to bury her. And so as he's hearing, and if you're a porter, you must have your ears and your eyes on.
Porters actually know.
You know everything that's
more
happening.
Than everybody, yeah.
So you obviously know that the family of this girl is looking for her. So do you go back to your business on the daily? How do you live going forward? You know, it's a big question. I think it's a heavy thing on the conscience of a society when that is something that happens to children. And I wish we could say it's just Tamara, but it happens so many times. The statistics are jarring.
Even today, probably we just do not know yet, but something
it's
has
happening
happened to a woman.
To a woman, to a child. It's terrifying. So I want to bring that back to rape is political. What do you mean by that?
Is it Plato who says that man is a political animal?
Mm-hmm.
And if we are to derive from that, even amongst ourselves, politics is what places the conscience of a person to one of the things I consider as the most important aspects of attributes of a human being, consideration. That you're able to consider. It's not like, I know somebody might make an argument and say, I cannot do such a vile thing. There's a very thin line between you and an animal, and we're not any different. In fact, the only thing that makes us separate from animals is our conscience, like you have said. And because we are able to consider our conscience and weigh out in what ways can we be harmful to one another, in what ways can we humanize each other, in what ways are we separate from the animals, from the brute of the animal kingdom. That is conscience, and that's why rape is very political, because it exercises that power that you are something, a thing that I can plunder, a thing that I can trample upon, a thing that I can take from and abuse at my own will and wit without ever thinking of there will be a consequence or a repercussion.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's very political because there is a decision made. There is a premeditation sometimes. There is a structure and a philosophy to it based on how our society conducts relationship amongst ourselves, how we view children, how we view bodies of women, how we view men who have lesser, how we view boys, how we use religion to transact this conscience that we have, to rationalize some of the cultures that we have that actually contribute towards rape and abuse and violence. That's what I mean by rape is very political.
Yeah.
And if I were to tie it up, the human body, everything else in terms of humanity or civilization, anything we can ever imagine erupts or it springs from the body. And what more better description than the body of a child? The body of a child is that which we send into the future, knowing that in 100 years, all of us will be wiped off this earth. But it's these children that we bear that will reach where we will never reach. But in aspiration and hope and trust, think that we should leave this world a better place.
Yeah.
And because rape, there's something that the lady said about an injury that happens to your conscience. And I think that is what happened to our political conscience. An injury happened to us. And therefore we feel that we are able to commit harm and the vilest of acts to people, not just children, to people, actually human beings, and get away with it.
Yeah.
And so that places us in terms of what narratives do we build in our minds, what idea of loving each other and tending to each other do we have as human beings, as fellow human beings, so much that we can do such injury to a very vulnerable person.
Yeah.
And the much we can have is have this debate.
Is that?
Is have this debate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And then,
helpless, don't you think?
yeah, it's so helpless, but I don't want to be very defeatist, because
Yeah.
we need to perform an autopsy, not just on the body of Tamara and women that have been killed. There are hundreds. I think since I started counting in early 2010s, it's probably hitting 1,500. Those are the ones that are documented, and because we have very little registry for gender-based violence and killings, I feel like it could be more. I feel like these conversations are needed.
Yeah.
I feel like that is also what contributes and makes rape a political thing, because we are having a conversation about it.
Yeah.
We are allocating our time to it. We are thinking in terms of what ways can we move further away from that harm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when stories like this erupt, there's always people who talk about how these incidences are isolated, and so they push for the idea that punish the person, this man,
Leave the whole goddamn society alone.
and leave everyone else alone.
We are not that neurotic.
Yeah. So that's a big thing that's in our consciousness, in our collective consciousness. It's like when something very unfortunate happens, we're just like, okay, don't make it more than what it is. Like when we start to have conversations about it in this manner, it almost feels like we are conflating the issue, and make it, or maybe we are expanding it beyond its actual scope. But I want to talk about this as not just as a societal ill, but as something that is, how you've started it with, like, okay, it's a very political thing, but as something that has become acceptable in our conscience. In my head, I think that when you've called it an injury to the soul, when something like this happens, a society ought to stop.
To paralyze us, actually.
Yes, we need to stop. We need to stop everything you're doing. Let's look each other in the eye and be like, what's happening? What happened? How did we get here? But we seem to drum on, regardless of what happens to us. We seem to keep going and keep going. I have said on this podcast before, like, that incident at Endarasha, it wasn't rape, but it was that children were disappeared. And we just kept moving on. It became a headline for 2 days, and then whoever wants to report about it can report about it, but we don't know really what happened with those children. And over again, things like this happen. Parents kill their children. We see it, it's a headline, we move on. There's a critical breaking point that we have gone beyond. And I would think that a society that's functioning well, that's alive, that has its pulse, and conscience would stop in very many instances, but we don't. And I wonder why. Why do we keep drumming on and moving on? And sometimes we see people talking about how industrious and resilient we are, and how economically savvy we are, and all of these things. You know, when we talk about the East African region, for example, we are hailed as a very progressive and modern society, but in very many ways we are very primitive. So what has happened? What has happened? How have we gotten here to this place where everything is accepted and permitted, and we just keep drumming on?
I don't know whether it's your opinion as well, but when you look at countries tend to have a certain character. There's a certain cloth they wear on their skins. Our country and South Africa and Nigeria comes to mind as they're sort of twins.
Okay.
In terms of the traumas and injuries we've suffered, how we conduct ourselves. We are not a sane country at all. We are very sick. I feel like at some point we were also dead. We have been dead before.
Yeah. Was there a resurrection?
I don't think so. And that's the tragic part of it, because societies die, and with that death comes with the humor of resurrection, the humor of reinvention, the humor of, like you said, looking each other in the eye and saying, how can we sprout from this rot? How can we confront our ills? I think like we have not done that.
Yeah.
And the other tragic part is we don't even think that we are dead. We think we are very alive because we are the East African darling child. We have skyscrapers. We have good international schools and good hospitals. We speak good English. We have good roads.
Yeah.
And those wow us into the pride of thinking that we are alive, but we are soulless. And I feel like how that happens is constant exposure to trauma and the lack of courage we have towards confronting that. If I were to extrapolate Kenya as a household, I don't know when you were born, but I imagine you probably are almost my peer if I were to take 80s and mid-90s.
Yes, 93.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that makes you my peer. And whether you go to South Africa or you go to Morocco or you go to Uganda, when you take that particular age group, and even sometimes beyond Africa, there's a certain leaning or a certain undercurrent of how they view life, how they conduct themselves. Because we are a product of violence, we are a product of silence, we are a product of rote growth. Rote growth, whether you go to school, be a doctor, be an engineer, don't care about what soul the education system is supposed to give you. Care about the outcome of you getting money and building your mother a good house and coming home with a big, tired car, swinging around, feeling important. And then because we realized that was very unattainable, we started another thing altogether, which is to trample upon people. Like the means does not matter. It's the end, the outcome.
The outcome,
And then we started treating each other as raw materials, as things, and not beings with sensibilities and empathy and wealth and knowing each other, and knowing of each other. So I feel like this then again also extends to our parents, because there are things we inherited and there are things that are consequentially signature to our generation. So our parents are products of colonial children. Violence was meted on them, the boarding school system, the colonial civilization of the African child. There's a way you're supposed to be molded. And I think this is what Fanon says, you have a white mask on a black skin. So you are supposed to be whitened to be worthy of dignity. And what better way than the education system, than religion, than the market system. So when our parents come, they come with this high sense of self-expectation. And because most of them never even actually achieved that epitome of the African civilized child, they wanted to achieve that dream through their children. And that's where the violence comes in. That's where you should have your hair a particular way. That's where you have to go to church every Sunday or Saturday. If you do not, then you are a heathen. And yet, the very people who go to church do not depict Christ-like behavior. They do not treat each other with love as the most fundamental truth about who a Christian should be. They treat each other with halal, and yet you claim to be a Muslim, a well-respected Muslim. You say that I do not go the religious way, I'm a pan-Africanist. But then we beat each other and kill each other when we think that a South African has gone to Zimbabwe or a Zimbabwean has gone to South Africa, and therefore they are infringing on your right of space. So I feel like it is not one thing that happened to us. There are different fractures that happened to us.
Yeah.
And it happened so continuously and persistently that it became the norm. Once something becomes a norm, such as violence, such as looking down on people and trampling upon them, such as the ease with which even, like, it's very funny because I remember I don't eat chicken, and I one of the reasons why I don't eat chicken, besides the allergies, I hated the violence with which chicken were being slaughtered.
Yeah.
And when my grandmother realized, she said that there's a way you're supposed to seduce a chicken before you eat it.
Really?
That makes the meat tender. And when I see how we treat each other, from Rwandan genocide to Biafran war, to what is happening in Congo right today, to what is happening in Syria, a chicken has a better dignity. You see, so the violence with which we treat each other is not even closer to the seduction we give animals when we try to lull them down, so that we can get nourishment out of them in terms of food, in terms of sustenance. It's so vile that when you have been constantly exposed to trauma and pain and injury, it takes away your self-worth. And self-worth is the plug by which this cord is connected, my cord is connected to you. Without it, I'm not able to humanize you as a person.
Yeah.
As a person deserving of my respect, as a person deserving of my protection. Because we are protecting each other.
Yeah.
One person cannot be safe enough for himself or herself.
Yeah.
That's just an illusion. You can have the barbed wire fence and the security, but that's very fickle.
Yeah.
We are as secure as the community from which we come from. From which we come is secure.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
So I feel like constant injury makes it the norm that, we are violent people. This is an animal kingdom. Eat whatever you want, even if it's your fellow man. Eat them alive. Trample upon them. Cross, pita nayo, like anguka nayo. That's the ideology we built, and it's what is now eating us.
Yeah.
Because we are not able to give and tend to love.
Yeah.
We so much loathe ourselves. Kenyans hate themselves so much.
Yes.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, societies that hate internally are bleeding. They're hemorrhaging inside. That's why I was telling you Nigeria, South Africa. And you guys are going to watch from all over the world. It's very true. Even America, why do you think they plunder Asia and in Iraq and Syria, and yet think it's such an American manifesto? We are the big boy of the world.
Yeah.
You hate yourself.
Yeah.
You hate yourself. That's why you bomb people. You bomb children who are helpless. You bomb hospitals. Israel is bombing hospitals, imagine. People that are already excavated from the artery of supply of food and water and dignity. They always say that when somebody is too down, don't kick them.
Yeah.
So imagine somebody who's killing somebody who's already too vulnerable, beyond the threshold that you are saying.
Yeah.
So I feel like that hate only translates to our relationship with each other. The frustrations, if you were to write the pathology of who we are, because it's what now separates. When people say that we ought not to conflate these issues, that this man acted on his own conscience and behalf, and therefore let us not rope in all the men. Let us not think that this is a Kikuyu problem, that Kikuyu men are not like that, or Luo men are not like that, or that is not a proper Kikuyu because he is a Kehe, because he is not circumcised. So therefore, somebody who does such a despicable thing is not a man enough. He's not a Kikuyu man enough. But we are running away from the ecosystem, because a man and a woman is a product of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
The environment they grew up in, the languagizing of norms, of things, of respect, of love. Because I remember when we were younger, a parent would find you doing very mischievous stuff after 4 p.m. class,
Yeah.
and they would lay you down and cane you and offer some respect, or they would report you to your parent
Yeah.
because there was a sense of community in it.
Yes.
That comes from the idea that a child is a village, a child
Yes.
is an ecosystem. A child actually is the closest resemblance of an ecosystem,
Yes.
because it tells our connection to each other.
Yeah.
And therefore, I imagine, just like you say, that this person being a beba guy, I always feel like the people who we might think are low lives are actually the people who actually know the society better.
Yeah.
If I were to get stranded somewhere in downtown, the one person I'd get probably comfortable with is a street boy, because they know the insides of them. And some of them are very kind.
Yeah.
You know? So I imagine that this person has a sense of some sort of responsibility. Imagine this is somebody who carries your luggage.
Yeah.
You might carry a luggage of an old mama, and I'm Beba Mkono, carrying holding his hand and say, hey, I'm taking. And sometimes they look at the mama and say, I'm not charging this mama, I'm just gonna do it out of goodwill.
Yeah.
I feel like that is the responsibility we ought to have to our children, with each other.
Yeah.
You know, if we lose that, then we lose our political conscience.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's also what we lost with each other.
Yeah.
In the bigger, larger national ideology.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, so much to
Unpack.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack from that. But I've just had like a little light bulb moment when you've talked about how children was a sort of collective responsibility where we Auntie Nani, who is not your actual auntie, could lie you
Everyone was
down
an auntie and an uncle.
on the streets and meet you and then go home and report to your mother and say,
you'll be beaten again at the
then you
second
get
time.
beaten twice. And we still feel so bad about it. But think about how much safety that provided for us. Like, you knew that wherever you were, there was an eye that's watching over you, not just to punish you, because it's also just to make sure that you are safe. This collective responsibility around children. And it's so interesting how much we've deviated from that. Like now, children are individual. Like children belong to individuals. Children belong to the mother and the father. It's so strange. You can be. Let me give the example of church. For example, you can be in church, and this child is like hitting on the mom or just running the whole place, but I cannot do anything about it because apparently this child only belongs to the mother, and anything that's any disruption that they are causing or any whatever it is that they are doing to this larger space does not matter unless the mother herself decides to correct it. Like now children are like, wacha let me be the one to deal with it.
Wachana na kababa kangu.
Wachana na kababa, wacha mimi ndio ni mchapa. Kama ni kumchapa, wacha mimi ndio nimchape if at all. Ama wachana tu na yeye hivyo ndio anakuanga. And it's the connection that's happening in my mind is like that when we lost that collective responsibility over children and collective how can I call it, like collective checks and balances over children, we also lost the safety that children had just being around, because everybody had this sense of children are supposed to be protected and children are supposed to be, when you see it, like there was a conscience, there's a part of us that has died that was very aware of like, I'm supposed to, if I see a child walking around, I remember when I was in primary school, I got lost one day. Like I was walking home. I think it was one of my earliest times to walk home. Because before that, when I was in lower primary school, my brother used to go with me to school and pick me from school. And we'd go home together. So I think when I got to maybe class 4, I don't remember exactly, maybe class 3 or class 4, they started kind of leaving me to figure it out myself. And I got lost. I didn't know where I was going. I knew the general direction, but I must have taken a wrong turn.
And that's it,
somewhere. And then it was just like, I don't know where I am. At some point, I don't know where I am. I wasn't too far from home, but I was not on the right track. And I remember just going to like a home and telling them I was lost. And this man took me all the way back to school. And then now we started retracing. Like, that could only happen because the society was better, had this collective responsibility over children. Because what was preventing him to just be like, you just go that way, go that, to point me in the direction. Like, what is it about this man that made him take me back to school? So that then from school now we can figure out where this child is supposed to go. In the evening, like, I left school at 5 or at 4:30, whatever. So this is maybe 5:30. You should just be caring for your business, figuring out your night routine with your family and your children. Now there's a lost child here. What is it about a society that then moves from that into a lost child now is more at risk of harm than safety and protection? It's a very weird thing. So that's the first thing that has kind of, unlocked that thing in my mind. And I want to encourage parents. We need to share responsibility over children. Yes, it's your child. That's fine. But allow other people to share the responsibility of raising this child with a village. Don't just make it only your responsibility, because guess what? Your child is going to be outside of your home alone. And we need to recreate that trust where if your child is not home on time, you know that wherever they are safe. And if they're lost, someone will bring them home to you, So that's the first thing. The second thing, I think we operate in a very disintegrated mindset. Like, we do not think, or we do not see the connections you're trying to make in things. We do not see that how I treat you today, or even how the politicians treat us, is very well connected to how Tamara ends up going through this ordeal. We don't see how the way we treat each other, the way we relate with each other, impacts how our children end up existing in this society. We dehumanize each other, and on this other side, we are hoping that we end up with a better outcome.
Yep.
It's not possible.
It's not.
If our bottom lines in business are about profit over anything, which is how we end up with houses that are falling and people live in those houses. Meanwhile, there's an engineer, there's an architect, there's a contractor, there's 10,000 fundis, all whom this building has passed through their hands. And then 1 month later, families have moved into this house that you guys built, and it falls down. It falls down. People die in that house. Why? Because somebody got a small piece of land in a place where they're never supposed to build, and somebody in the city county office gave them permission to build in a place where they were not supposed to build. Why? Because you're supposed to have income, and you're supposed to be able to make money and feed your children. At what cost? At what cost? But we don't see that when we move from there, we are going slowly down the drain, and you end up in a place where even you're wondering, what kind of society is this that we have? But si Njoroge, sorry to be stereotypical, si Njoroge alisema anataka flats because flats is going to be his legacy. So sawa, si umwache ajenge flats zake, even though your flats inaenda kuanguka kesho. Inaenda kuanguka with people inside, it's going to fall. Nothing happens. We don't even see uproar about it. Now it's not even shocking anymore. The first time I heard that a building fell, I was like, what are you talking? What do you mean? Who commissioned this building? What do you mean a building fell? How did it fall? Who built it? Who gave permissions? What? How many people have been arrested? Nobody. Nobody has been arrested. And a building has fallen. A building has fallen. So it seems like we have this idea. We we compartmentalize everything. We don't see that society is very, very interconnected. And when we do not have checks and balances one place, we won't have checks and balances the other place. And I like that you have said, like, children give us this vision of the future. It's like, it's who we bequeath this society to. It's why we do all the work that we do to ensure that we have a sane society, so that we can hand over a sane society to our children. But we don't see that we are destroying the society when we allow some things to happen. When it's very casual for me to even go to the internet and type something really nasty to someone on the comment section, someone I don't know. And now it's just normal. It's just normal. I can come and literally strip you off on the internet because I disagree with you, and move on with my day like nothing happened. What is that? It's so bad. It's so bad. But the society is connected, and we seem to not be seeing how we relate to each other on different frontiers is how we create a collective.
That's life.
Yeah, it's how we create a collective.
Life.
That's what becomes a society, right? And so I want you to talk a little bit about our relationship with our politicians and how this feeds into this denigration of our society.
Well, track it back a little bit. You talked about the collapse of buildings, and I was wondering, or just excited about how that is the bigger metaphor of a country or a society. I was fortunate enough to be raised by a man who was very hands-on, and he was as good as in theory as in practicals. So we built a lot of stuff, and he was very conscious about fractures, the little to fractures that happen, whether in a wood or in an enamel cup. And so fractures that happen on the foundation of who we are, of what we imagine as our Kenyan society is, they did not happen recently. They happened through the silences that we sanctioned within our families. And this is why I needed to bring into focus. There's a particular comment I highlighted yesterday when I was commenting on Tamara Blessing's case and rape. And this guy was like, what was it about her that made her be raped? And I want us to go back to the houses, the homes from which we come. And how...
Sorry, what do you mean? What was this person saying?
This person, I don't know, should I read it? Let me read it.
You can read it.
Let me read it verbatim so that our audience can see
what you're saying.
Yeah. So this is verbatim by an Eric Ndungu. I'm sure there are other 7-year-olds in the society where the attack happened. My question is, why was this specific 7-year-old attacked and not others? What made her an attractive target for the attacker? What? Question mark.
Okay, Ndungu.
Yeah. So this tells you how we politicize abuse. And it starts from how we internalize and absorb those two little abuses that happen within families. Because I'm sure Ndungu Eric is from a family. The person who abused and murdered Tamara is from a family. The men and women who have killed their partners over the years that we have known of, and those that we do not know of, come from families. They are people's children. They are people's husbands. They are people's people.
Yeah.
They're human beings.
Yeah.
And so there's something very particular when it comes to abuse and violence that happens within intimate spaces. There's almost a reverent way of managing them, of silencing them, of What will it show about our family?
If we say that,
If we say that,
Nini, our child was raped by her uncle.
Let us send this uncle to Mombasa or Uganda. It's very common for our area because it borders Uganda and TZ.
Tumtume Uganda.
Yeah, Tumtume Uganda. So after 5 or so years, and nowadays it's not even 5 or so years, 3 years or a year, it comes back as if nothing has happened. What happens when your daughter confides in you that my uncle, because like we said earlier, everybody was an uncle and an auntie. It was sort of like and I understand why modernity is seeming to move away from it because of the ills that have come as a result of it. But back in it was a term of reverence, of trust and respect and love.
Yeah.
You know, everybody who is a friend to your mom or your dad was an uncle or an auntie.
Yes.
That was it.
Yeah.
Because there was a trust in it, there was an intimacy in it. That in the event that mom has gone to a matanga or gone to another safari somewhere, you would be entrusted with this uncle who has very little relationship with you, not even a lineage, not even a blood.
Yeah.
There are probably people who was a help to you, or just a neighborhood friend or somebody like that.
Yeah.
So yes, this how we sanction when children that we trust start behaving a certain way and we do not question it, because that's where the fracture starts to happen. How we know, because I have dealt with cases where a mother actually knew that his husband, the father of his children, was actually abusing and has abused all their 3 daughters. All of them. From the eldest, who you can say, from what she was now confessing, was not his own daughter. But you took her. You took this wife of yours with her and accepted her. And even then, even if it is not your daughter, it does not warrant you to abuse and rape them.
Yeah.
As if that is not enough, the second born daughter went through the same thing. The third born daughter went through the same thing.
Yeah.
Now, I cannot imagine, because mothers are very sensitive. And even if it's not sensitivity, there's something that puts you, when proximity puts you in a space, something can go on for only so long.
Yeah.
Before you actually notice something is off.
Yeah.
You understand? And it was sad that when the youngest daughter now confronted her, that, Mom, I think that you knew Dad was actually touching us inappropriately. And I think you kept silent. I think you were also abused. And you had no courage to tell this man off.
Yeah.
I feel like you were also feeling less protected and unsafe in his hands. And you felt helpless. So when this younger daughter went to the pastor was like, that cannot happen because this man is a deacon in the church.
What a joke.
Yeah.
What
So
do you mean?
we do not believe the child because the man is a deacon in the church. So these fractures do happen.
Deaconhood comes with a special software.
Yeah. That cannot be uninstalled or cannot have a virus or a bug.
Yeah.
So connecting it to the collapse that we are seeing in the society, we imagine collapses as something very fundamentally far off. And I think it's the same thing with human beings. We feel like tragedy cannot touch us. We are safe as long as we go to a good school, as long as you marry a good wife, as long as you raise your children well with love, with 2 parents, then your child will just be safe. You guys will just be safe. But that's not the case.
It's not true at all.
The fractures that happen far off, they always say when a fracture happens somewhere very far off, that it can crack the land that which you do your crops, the land, the farm upon which you plant your crops.
Yeah.
A drought that happens somewhere far off has a way of affecting a farmer in your own home. So these small fractures that happen within houses, the silences, the not believing victims when they are brave enough to tell us something is off here.
Yeah.
Because I usually feel, besides how we have also weaponized victimization or victimhood, there's usually a sense of truth when victims come up and say, this and this happened to me. And I feel like maybe I did not say it when it was happening because I never had the courage to do so.
Yeah.
But we need to examine our our pathologies in terms of how we let these fractures happen bit by bit until it collapses not on us alone, but on the bigger society and the picture we have built of what society should look like.
Yeah.
I don't know what you asked next, but I think that you are asking me to see how these networks do connect.
Yeah, to our political world.
Political world.
I think it's one of the spaces where we are most removed emotionally. I think it's a concerted effort to remove us from it, to remove us from the abuse that is happening.
True.
It's that moment where when someone is abusing you, sometimes people have told us, like, you just, when you feel powerless and defenseless, you just hold. It's that freeze. It's like we are all in a freeze politically. Like, itaisha tu na ataenda na ataniacha, you know, and then I can go about my business. It feels like we have been desensitized to how we are being plundered by the political class. And I think it connects.
It does.
Because it has become very acceptable. Our politicians get away with so much. So many bad things happen every day. I remember a few years ago when the audit of the government was happening, and we got this report that we lose 2 billion shillings every single day. Every day. And it was a headline. It was a headline. Nothing
beyond it.
So we lose it where? Like, where is it going? Who is pocketing communal resources that need to be shared? And why are we not? It did not elicit the kind of response and reaction that I would have hoped it would. It just felt like, okay, I guess they're the ones with the power to do it. So I feel like it's very, very connected, and I wanted you to kind of help us unpack.
It is very connected because
how that works,
when we talk about the politician, we think of it as a creature. A politician is not a creature. Mr. Ruto is not a creature. He's not this calculative and scheming and conniving and smart kingmaker. No. He's the father of Charlene and George and those other boys.
Yeah.
He went to school barefoot, like some of us. In fact, that is the narrative he sold for a lot of people, that God, you know, that it made people swallow the sink. So there is no myth to him. And all these other politicians, there's no single myth to it. They are just people like us.
Yeah.
So they draw from us. They were born with mothers like us. Their mothers is not special, you know. Their fathers are not special to our fathers. So I feel like that is the first detachment that happens. I tend to feel that when we speak about these things, when I wrote about Tamara, I did not write about facts. I avoided citing statistics, even though I have them, even though I am a statistician myself. I went into emotions. Because emotions, as much as the modern world, as particularly the masculine and the red pillars, are saying emotions are feminine and emotions have no place in the modern world, that facts and logics are what is where their life is. I feel like emotions are what actually humanize us. So when we emotionalize each other, we are able to see that the politician is our neighbor. We saw them going to school. Some of them were older brothers. We were in upper primary when we were in lower primary.
Yeah.
Some of them, we were with them in campus in UN.
Yeah.
Babu was in 4th year when I was in 1st year.
Yeah.
These are not different
that
people.
That might also be true for me.
These are not different people.
Yeah.
So the first big disservice we do is removing abuse and political violence and political corruption from us. And this happens particularly even with corruption. We tend to imagine corruption as such a big thing. But when we pay for passport, which you should not be paying for. We consider it is an incentive for the passport to come out faster than expected. You know, when Makangas between Kisumu and our stage in Sondu pays almost 8 tolls of traffic policemen and officers, 50 bob or 100, we do not see that as corruption. We think corruption is the net scandal or Shif or Adani, because that is what warrants what corruption is. We think of a politician as somebody who holds office, but you are a politician in your family.
Yeah.
You're a politician in your relationship. Within yourself, you are a political animal, because you make decisions. You are responsible for yourself. You're responsible for people around you. And this is why I hate the modern ideology that nobody owes you anything. No, in fact, we do owe each other. We do owe each other everything.
My God, my God. You want all our motivational speakers to run out of out of work.
That is the pathology of the modern world. That
Nobody owes you anything. Yeah. The amount of times I see that on the internet, I'm like, what? Where do you live?
Where?
Which earth are you existing in? We owe each other decency at the very least.
We do. We do.
Yeah.
And then so when now you have debunked the Kenyan politician, because I don't think, and this is why I like Nigeria and Kenya, because they are very striking in terms of their resemblance. African politician is just a particular creature. How they operate, how they think, how they dehumanize fellow Africans, fellow human beings. It's just almost the same.
Yeah.
So the connection is that these people are not drawn from some island somewhere, or they're not aliens.
Yeah.
They're people like us, and they can actually bleed. Sometimes we think that because they have these armored vehicles and put on vests on their suits, beneath their suits, they are indestructible. They are not. And when even them, they sometimes think they are very safe, they're insulated from all this, and therefore nothing you throw, a stone or a critique or an inquiry or a question you throw at them will not reach them. And I think we need to debunk that myth, because these people are like us, they're drawn from us. And if anything, our politicians do reflect who we are. Our greed, our neurosis, our plunder. Even in terms of, like, there's something I really hate, and sometimes maybe you're walking with a friend and you just throw things around. After eating a banana, you just throw it around. Somebody's going to pick it. How we use public toilets and facilities. How we want to detach from not offering advice to somebody who is obviously, socially and morally deviating from what is actually. There's something what is decent. There's what is beautiful, what is honorable as a human being. And we see it all the time. And modernity comes in and says that is not our place to do.
That's freedom.
So.
No. Modernity said no, everybody needs to have freedom to express themselves the way they want.
And I feel like that is also what we give to politicians, because we imagine that is the way a politician is supposed to act. He's supposed to have all.
That's so interesting, because it's like that's so interesting. How do we not see that if we are consistently inundated with the narrative that we don't owe each other anything, then these people also don't owe us anything. So if you believe that nobody owes you anything, nobody owes me anything, then from which brain or from which are you going to look at Ruto or Uhuru or whoever of these people and be like, hey, actually, you owe me something. You owe me something. That's so interesting to me. It's like, we say these things and we feel like it's just over here that you're passing a narrative and you're teaching us how nobody owes me anything. I need to bootstrap myself and go and work really, really hard. But if nobody owes me anything, then the politician also doesn't owe me anything. Our elected leader, so then why should I go and vote? Why should I go and do anything?
Exactly.
Actually, if nobody owes you anything, then anything is permissible.
It's a free fall,
It's a free fall. So let them steal all the billions that they want. Let them kill out in the open. Let them do because they don't know you anything. That's insane.
There's something particularly very interesting when you talk, interview, or just generally relate with a woman who's been abused. Whether it's subtle, or the ass spanking by makangas. But I want to bring a very graphic scene.
Okay.
Because,
Let me brief myself.
Because we are being raped every day. And it's not in our sexual parts. It's almost in the post-sexual parts. And this is why sometimes when sodomy happens, it is so despicable because it touches almost close to the man. You know, in wartime periods or battles, men were punished by being sodomized. In prison, where most men are vulnerable, you're being sodomized. So sodomy is the epitome of defilement for a man. But we do not see that spanking a woman or catcalling them or forcing ourselves forcing ourselves on women is abuse. But what I wanted to bring is a scene from somebody I will not mention that I interviewed for my book, where they are describing a moment of feeling that may the next 1 minute be over and I can go on with my life. They have gone through all the processes of resisting, of seduction, because at some point you start to seduce your abuser. That is what we do to our politicians. At some point, negotiating. Please give me a handout. I 50 bob. I will not see you. After all, I will not see you until the next electioneering period.
Yeah.
You imagine, your abuser, you imagine you will never see your abuser again. So you are in this critical 1 minute moment where they are raping you as a woman. And you're like, this, I have done everything I can as a human being. I am helpless. My rage, my negotiations, my seductions, all of it is harmless. It's pointless now.
Yeah.
So just do whatever you want to do with me and leave me the fuck alone.
I need to just live through this.
Is that any different from where we are as a country?
We're just hoping that, it ends. Let me just close my eyes, it will end.
Yeah. Where do you think one term is coming from? This guy is raping us. Everything is falling apart: education, healthcare, water, agriculture. Nothing is working.
Yeah.
And it did not start with him. We have numbed ourselves and imagine, may our plunders end. And it is not ending today, not tomorrow. Until a rage happens, because some demons can only be exercised by rage. We cannot be polite. And this is why I was telling you, respectability that happens within homes. Oh, respect your dad. Oh, that's your uncle. That's a deacon. That's Mr. Ruto.
Ooh, that's
that's the CS.
That's another connection. And politicians are playing. How many times have we heard the word nidhamu being said in our in our House of Parliamentarians?
Like Gen Zs are so rude.
Hatuna nidhamu, hamuna, you're not respecting. We need respect. It starts from our homes. This respectability politics, like every time someone speaks up against their abuser, we are quicker to silence them than we are to point our finger at the abuser and be like, why are you doing this? And our politicians know that. They know that nidhamu is the biggest thing. To be seen as respectable, to be seen as, a respectable member of the society is the most important thing we have. It's the only value actually we want to uphold. Nyinyi wengine muone nyumba yetu iko sawa. But we are dying inside. Na hiyo nidhamu yetu yote, we are dying inside. It's so interesting, that connection now making it, because that time that people were being abducted, the speech that the president gave was that na vijana wetu wawe na nidhamu. what is he saying? He's saying na vijana wetu they stop aibishaing you guys in your houses because he knows that you guys don't want to be to aibika, even if the cost is your own children. Even if your children are being abused, it's fine. Wacha tusikwe na aibu, lakini our children can be abused as much as they want. That is such an interesting thing. My goodness.
Leilo.
Tuache nidhamu. I think we need to stop being respectable. Nidhamu ni nini? Iyo kitu. That thing that we have. What is that? It's called what? It's respect. It's politeness. Meekness.
And I hate how nidhamu does not translate to one
It doesn't
thing.
translate it.
It has a conglomerate of things
Yes.
that are polite, that are less dangerous. But we cannot come out of this less dangerous.
Yeah.
We have to claw our way out of it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about people who have trampled on you over and over because they know they can get away with it.
The day you start to speak up, they're like, but you've been okay.
Yeah, you've been
but
okay.
si umekuwa sawa, mbona leo una complain?
Yeah, now let me expand that to what maybe men usually say, but you loved it, but you enjoyed it.
But you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You enjoyed it when we...
But you dressed well.
Yeah.
You are looking for it.
Yeah. You're asking for it.
That is what that's why I was telling you earlier in the other episode that politicians do know. They are asking us, but you are enjoying it.
You're enjoying it.
Yeah. You're enjoying calling me names. You're enjoying calling me Kasongo.
Yeah. So nyi mjibambe tu. Me, I'll continue doing whatever I'm doing.
Immunized from that,
Yeah.
from respectability, because abuse used to be used as a sanction. Wewe kichwa yako inakaa ugali ya saa 7 and you feel like, hey, my head bro, niko sawa. And then unarusha ingine. It was a banter, a social banter of connecting and relating. And then at some point, it was abuse has been used, like Stella Nyanzi has been using abuse, vulgar abuse, using sexual body parts against Museveni. Abuse has been used everywhere in court jesters, in earlier court jesters. So abuse as an art has a space. But there comes a time where dialogue, our politicians have no sense of dialogue. And that is almost the same thing that rapists do not have. Because if you have a dialogue is conscious talking.
We have to talk. I see you, you see me. We disagree at this point, but we are trying to find a middle ground.
Dialogue is what would have made that man who raped Tamara say, this man, this girl, could she be the one who got lost, who the parents has been looking for? Are you lost, girl? Where is home? Do you know your mom's number? Because children, a 7-year-old child can surprise you in terms of what they know. I know my home. My home has a red roof. Oh, a red roof. Oh, take it to the next police station. That's conscious. That's dialogue. But we've lost that.
Yeah.
Because when somebody says, regarding a child who has been pumped by 12 bullets by policemen who are supposed to be protecting the same child, so removed from the emotion of empathy towards this child and the parent, but they're alive. Si yako mzima. See, you guys are alive. See, the tax doesn't matter. Where the money is getting lost doesn't matter. But see, you guys are alive. That is, and you see, when we talk abuse and violence and rape, people think that it is the act in itself. There's a meditation towards it. There's a culture and a way we narrativize it in our heads, in our minds, in our collective sense that leads to the final act.
Yeah.
And even when the final act happens, we still talk about anything, the detours from the very thing that is happening.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
Give him more time. It's been 2.5 years. What are you going to do in the next 2.5 years? If these 2.5 years you've not done anything tangible that you can point, what are you going to do? If you've been stealing money, if you have been accused, it is a whole line of court cases against you as a person. You want to say all these things are just coincidences.
Watu wanaongea tu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So violence is very political. And it is not just the physical harm. That is the smallest part of violence.
Yeah.
The biggest part of violence is emotional. How somebody conceives of it, that I can harm this person and there's nothing you would do to me.
Yeah.
That's the biggest injury. And that's why recovering from that is very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good place to end.
Yeah.
That is mind-blowing and also concerning. I'm feeling so many things right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all connected. I think my takeaway actually on the last point is that the idea that we need to just close our eyes and be quiet and wait for our abusers to, I guess, gain a conscience and decide to stop to abuse us. And I mean the political elite in this case. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And it's putting our entire society in jeopardy. It's putting our most vulnerable in jeopardy, and we need to do better. We need some adults in the room who can actually have the necessary conversations that will begin to heal that injury that's on our souls, on our consciousness as well, and on our conscience. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you for staying with us up to this point. We appreciate you joining this conversation. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye for now.